Hi everybody, it's Debbie Dubois here. Time for the Pick a Card reading. This is my first and I'm really excited about it. I'm kind of celebrating the new moon and I thought it would be a great way to do it is to just do this. So many of you have commented saying that you're interested in finding out what one of these different piles is, what message there is for you. This is the first one, the second one, the third one, and the fourth one. Now, I'm going to leave this up for just a few minutes in case you are just getting this reading and you haven't really had a chance to, tune into the cards that feel right for you. I'll just show you the crystals. This is a Chrysocolla. This, of course, is a rose quartz heart. We have an aventurine heart and some dogs barking. And we also have, this is my favorite personally, I love this thing. This is my Aqua sword with a sapphire. So anyways, I'm going to give you just a minute to tune into those decks. Make sure you pick which stack of cards feels best for you, and then I'll go ahead and get started. In the meantime, I'm just going to tune in. Just let the energies come through me. I ask for the highest guidance for everyone who is listening to this reading. This reading is not just about love relationships, but it is about our higher destiny, our higher purpose, and all the things that the catalytic heart awakening does for us, the directions it moves us in, the blocks it reveals to us. So we ask right now that everyone who is getting this reading gets something out of it in what is intended for them by their highest self and by the collective. We say thank you so much to Source for being present in this reading. Okay. All right. The first thing I'm going to do, and hopefully by now you've picked a stack that you feel comfortable with. I'm just going to let you know what cards I'm using. I'm using The Power of Surrender. This is something that Marla introduced me to, Judith Orloff, and I love these cards. Okay. Getting them out of the way right now so we have a little bit more space. The Romance Angel cards, of course, by Doreen Virtue. These are another deck of cards that I found through Marla, Shamanic Healing. I really like this because this deck is really about the higher healing and higher purposes. And of course, for those of you who don't know, my favorite go-to deck, the Untitled Oracle by Aria. A lot of you guys know her as Kimberly Fisher. And her higher self really worked with her to channel these cards. And this is a brand new type of reading with these cards. So I wanted to incorporate them into this reading. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to go ahead and move these other stacks just slightly out of the way. All right. And we're going to go ahead and we're going to read the first cards. This is the stack number 1 with the Chrysocolla. And let's just flip these cards over and see what they mean. Interesting. Okay. So I'm going to ask you to just give me a minute to tune into the energy of the cards. First card I always like to read when I use these cards is the Discernment. This is the Shamanic Healing Oracle. And I always like to read those first when I read more than just my Intuit Oracle deck because of the fact that it does oftentimes tell you what it is you're trying to heal. And I think that, discernment is really, really important right now. Discernment is extremely important because on this path, we've been honing our ability to tune into our own truth. And each day, we basically have a lot of stories that we've been working on undoing. And so when we undo our stories, we literally can be more discerning of what we see. And that's what this whole process is intended to do the ascension process is supposed to help us figure out what it is we resonate with and then draw our reality that we prefer to us. Okay? And sometimes we have to be very discerning in stories because stories go way back. They're long time stories that are in our DNA. They're programmed and they're taught to us by our family and taught to us by the souls that are traveling with us in all different walks, whether that's in work or play, community, or love relationships or family. So as we start to hone the ascension process, this is where we get into mastery, as we have to start discerning what is the story I'm telling myself, and is this actually true, or is this just something that I think is true? And so we're honing this right now. This is what we're working on, the discernment. Now, the love relationship, actually the surrender card, and it has to do with relationships, is to surrender unhealthy relationships. So part of discerning is discerning what relationships are healthy for us and which relationships aren't. And we need to let go of those relationships that don't serve us. And I want to make it very clear. We don't surrender relationships that are difficult. We don't surrender relationships that are negative just because they're difficult and negative. Because these people who you have that trigger you, that bring you so much work, they are homework assignments for you. Okay? They are teaching you something about yourself. However, you get to particular places where when you realize you no longer need that kind of lesson. In other words, you find yourself, wow, I've graduated from that lesson. That doesn't really feel right to me, and it's not attractive to me anymore, or it's not healthy for me anymore, and I don't really get anything out of the relationship. In other words, I'm healed. I don't need to hang on. So you're able to surrender those unhealthy relationships. Another way to look at this is if you're in an unhealthy relationship, surrender that relationship to source. Okay? Because source, we always think surrender like, let it go. I would like to say you can surrender an unhealthy relationship, and then you can be gotten great advice on how to proceed with that relationship. So you don't always have to let go completely of unhealthy relationships, but surrender them to your higher self. A Course in Miracles was a course that I read, back in the 90s, the early 90s, and I read it 3 times, and it talks about relationships, the holy relationship and the unholy relationship. And the unholy relationship is merely one that you try to discard for another relationship. But it's saying don't necessarily leave those people. I mean, you're going to know when you're ready to leave them, but don't necessarily let go of them, but see the true essence of them and see how much projection goes on in some unhealthy relationships. So you do deserve, however, to surround yourself with great, healthy relationships. So this is saying, start discerning which relationships are the most important to you, and then dedicate your time and energy in those directions. Doesn't necessarily mean you have to totally release the person. If you're done with that relationship and you are, then it might be time to surrender. But you know what? If you surrender that relationship to your higher self will easily make the transition out of that relationship. Either the person will move, or they'll get another job, or they'll find a girlfriend or boyfriend or whatever it is. So let Source take care of you. Okay? Now, it's interesting because there is something that you are dealing with that has to do with weddings. Okay? Now, I'm not going to pair this card together with this because I feel it's separate energy. I feel like these two energies go together. But I want to show you something. Over here in the Intuit Oracle, I got the Celtic Knot, unconditional love, divine union, and a total love of a lifetime. And the situation involves marriage. So this is coming. This is in your future. And what I want to say is if you're already married and you're not happy and you're in the process of moving on, or you're in the process of splitting up, or you're in the process of, thinking about splitting up, no matter what happens, this card is here to assure you. These two you're going to have true sacred union. You're going to have it, and it's going to involve a very, very deep spiritual commitment. Whether it involves the institution of marriage is up to you. But this card symbolizes the same thing as this. And this is eternal love. It's the love of a lifetime. So that's really great. Now we're going to go take a look at the oracle cards, these Intuit oracle cards. And interestingly enough, I don't know if if you haven't seen this before, if you haven't seen me read these cards before, they're read in pairs, and the middle card is usually the central card. So it does seem that there is something that you need to get rid of. Okay? There's something unwanted. There's something that you're tired of. It's necessity. It's something you do again and again and again. It could be, part and parcel to the unhealthy relationship. It could be totally unrelated to a relationship. You'll have to tune in and find out what it is that you're working on getting rid of. Okay? Now, because it is paired right next to the squirrel, I think, and I've talked about this in my readings this week, the squirrel energy to me is an annoying, scolding, secretive energy. Now, we all know that squirrels also have a very positive side. They are very good at storing things up for the winter. They like to gather a lot of things and place them someplace so that they are safe and protected and secure and well provided for in the winter. So there is the very positive side of the squirrel is someone that's, very prepared. But in this case, because we're talking about the broom and wanting to get rid of, this is a couple of scenarios I'm seeing. You either want to get rid of your scolding, accusatory kind of nature that you're feeling towards somebody, or I'll tell you what, and I said this in one of my readings, I've been feeling that way. So I get really scoldy and accusatory because I'm so impatient these days. The energies have really been testing. So I find myself, getting a little bit scolding or, accusing, oh, well, what did you mean by that? That kind of stuff. I'm thinking that the broom in this case is probably one side of things is getting rid of the squirrel energy. Okay. Getting rid of the squirrel energy. And for me personally, what I found helped was to go into gratitude. Okay. So by going into gratitude, and this is what I did personally, I started to think of all the things that I had to be grateful for. And it really helped me to get rid of some of this energy, the scolding energy. Now, the broom by itself is saying, there's something that you're doing and you're tired of doing it over and over and over again. And I can only imagine those of you who are twin flames, twin souls that have been doing this relationship thing, or you're just getting started on this catalytic heart awakening path. Trust me, there's so much stuff you're going to want to get rid of. And most of that is the ebb and the flow and the ebb and the flow. And you're like, oh my God, I really want to get rid of that. But I want to say this. I'm going to come back to the Celtic knot, but I want to say this. That unhealthy relationships can also be your perception of relationships and how you're having relationships. And that's where I said the Course of Miracles to me comes in here. Because if you just surrender that relationship, you will start to get rid of the things that keep you from getting the ultimate beautiful connection, of this, okay? And unhealthy relationships is usually, now sometimes you just have people that aren't worthy of your friendship, and they're not worthy of your time. And if they're not worthy of your time, honestly, and they don't bother you, and they do nothing but drain you, and they're not really bringing anything to you, if you go into your knowing, into your discernment, you're going to know if those people are draining to you. But this is a lot about learning how to have healthier relationships by surrendering the unhealthy relationships and letting them transform themselves a little bit. You will find yourself getting rid of the unwanted stuff. You're going to be cleaning up your mess, and maybe you'll start to feel a little less in this squirrely energy. I know that has been the case for me. And then paired with these, it's interesting. It's almost like the Celtic knot makes its appearance to let you know, hey, the work that you're doing here to overcome this squirrely energy you might be feeling, that it is super, super important, because on this path, if you're on a catalytic heart awakening path, and I want to clear this up, this does not mean that you've met, a twin flame, or that you're on your way to union with a particular person. This reading is for everyone, but we're all aiming. Anyone that's interested in love path is going to have found this reading, myself, my channel, my groups, because that's the motivation that we have for ascension. It's the carrot on the stick. All right. So what I'm saying to you is, it doesn't matter what the relationships are. If it's, someone that you've known a long time ago that catalyzed you, and then you haven't seen them and you really don't see any prospects of a relationship, it does not matter. If you're very motivated by love relationships, and at some point know that you want to be in that really perfect sacred union where you are equals and you are in a loving state of being, and you've worked out most of your blocks, and you like attracts like, and then you can have a really healthy, loving relationship. This is talking about that, all right? But as we know, we have to get rid of certain things before we can achieve this. So it sounds like, some of you who have chosen the Chrysocolla stack are still working through some of this discernment. Now, I want to say, there's your carrot on the stick, all right? You've got the carrot on the stick of the true sacred union that's on its way, and the Celtic knot. So anyways, well, that was fun. I like this. I might have to do this more. Well, I know I'm going to do it 3 more times today. I think that's where I'll leave this reading. All right. And I'm going to go ahead and put these cards over here with my Chrysocolla. All right. So now I'm just going to take a quick pause. Okay, getting my energies attuned with the next deck of cards. Okay, for those of you who picked the rose quartz, let's see what the cards say for you. All right. Surrender to effortless, calling your soulmate, inner journey. All right, and then we've got 3 cards. We've got the ladybug, Jupiter, and the magnifying glass. All right, let's take a look at these cards and let me tune in. Okay, so it seems those of you who have resonated with the rose quartz might just be more focused on your inner journey right now than anything else. Okay, so we all know that the inner journey is one of the most important pieces of this journey, because it takes a lot of reflection inside of ourselves, a getting to know ourselves, a getting in tune with what we want, what we don't want, what energies are pushing our buttons, even so much as how to express that in the physical, whether that is, diet, or whether that is sleep or exercise or pastimes, like what do you like to do with yourself. So much of this, in this whole process, you're going through this inner transformation. So we've got this inner journey coming up, coming through, doing great wonders for your soul's evolution right now in these times. Now, it's interesting, the card surrender to effortlessness comes up, okay? So if you're working on this inner journey, this card is saying basically don't push yourself so hard. And I need this card. it says the art of living means going with the flow instead of trying to force the river. And I cannot tell you, it's funny because I didn't personally pick this deck of cards, but I'm hoping that maybe there's something for you in all of these cards. And I think there is for me already so far. It's really true. Sometimes we can really, really be driven by what we want to create. We know what we want to create. We put in a lot of effort, and sometimes what we want to create really requires effort and stick-to-itiveness and the willingness to take it step by step by step by step and continue to persevere. But you can also do that in a state of effortlessness. And that comes when you are willing to surrender to the ease of the flow that is coming to you from source. And actually, you can find that if you allow yourself to go with the river, like flow with the river downstream, and I always think of it, it's funny because we're going to Niagara Falls. It's coming up. If you haven't heard, Marla is having something in September in Niagara Falls. And I think of Niagara Falls because I grew up there. I mean, I grew up an hour away from there. And I used to sit by the side of the Niagara River and watch the tide of water just flow towards the falls. And I used to get terrified that somehow, and I was small, and I was like, oh my God, I'm going to fall in and that's the end of me. I'll just be swept away. Well, interestingly enough, as my spiritual journey, strengthened, I started to understand that when we throw ourselves into that water, and we allow the flow of the water to take us, that rapid pace, if it's a rapid pace, is going to be for your benefit, and it will move things along much more smoothly than if you resist it. And I'll bring up another case that I was in a canoe at one point, and I'd never been whitewater canoeing before. It was in the North Georgia mountains. It was freezing out. It was like the end of winter. I don't know why I went. It was crazy. But anyways, I got in, and the first thing that happened was the canoes turned and tipped over, and there was just like a rock that I was hanging onto. And I look at the difference to where I was then and where I am now. I almost died that day, or I knew I was going to die. If I had let go of that rock and someone hadn't grabbed my hand, I know I would have smashed my head in the rocks, and I had all these horrible, beliefs about what would happen to me at that moment. I'd never been so scared. But I think that the evolution of our soul and the inner journey that we're on teaches us to actually let the waters take you. Trust that the waters will buoy you. Trust that the waves will keep you from hitting against the rocks, or that you won't get stuck or clogged. Or if you do, there's enough water momentum, it's going to push you right through it. So I think this is a great card to go along with and pair with Inner Journey. Now, once again, it's interesting. I don't feel these two cards necessarily relate to the love card that's here, which is Doreen Virtue's angel, hello, romance angels. And this is calling in your soulmate, all right? Well, and yes, it does, okay? I take that back, because what this is about is this is the inner journey to help draw that person to you, okay? The inner journey is, when I think of prayers, I think of alignment with what your higher self wants, okay? We think of prayers a lot of times as asking for circumstances, but true prayer is aligning yourself with your higher self and source, and visualizing that which you prefer, okay? Visualizing that which you prefer. And when you affirm that with being the highest good for all, for me, if it's not this, something better, that right there will help magnetize that person to you. This is all done on the inner journey, right? It's not something that is done necessarily on, like a verbal, you can verbalize it, but this is more of the inner journey. So that's really great. Okay, now let's take a look at what the Intuit Oracle has to add to this whole conversation. Okay, it's very, very good. All right, the first primary card is going to be Jupiter, the ruler of expansion. This is actually the ruling planet of my sign. Um, so as we tune in to the inner journey and we allow ourselves to flow a little bit more smoothly with where we're going. Let's make sure you can see that card. It's got a lot of bright light because it's like, this bright, bright planet. What happens is you really do start to feel the abundance and increase in everything good that you're trying to create. You end up surrendering to the higher power, and your higher power is always going to want the best for you. I mean, I don't know if you've heard Esther Hicks talking about, everything is always working out for me. The universe is always working out for me. And what that does is that Jupiter allows that to expand. Everything that you're trying to create starts to expand. You start to feel more attuned with what you want, so you start feeling better about it, and you start feeling more in an optimistic framework. And the gratitude word, I've been seeing this word a lot, and I've been using this word a lot. I think I might have used it earlier. You become grateful. All right, you become grateful for the flow that you have coming through your life. You start to bring to you great fortune. All right, you start being more lucky. Things happen simultaneously, or synchronistically is the word I was looking for. And if you can go through that with a very lighthearted perspective, with humor and grace, and this means everything starts expanding for you. All right. Now, what this requires is going within the magnifying glass. I think of the magnifying glass since it's part of this reading. Okay. I want to pair it with this card right here, because it actually is about the inner exploration, your inner journey, and you're going to want to take a look more carefully inside. You're going to want to examine what's inside very carefully. You're going to want to read your own fine print. You're going to want to tune into the little innuendos of you as a person, and you're going to want to get more information about yourself. Now, on the other side of Jupiter with expansion is the ladybug. And the ladybug says, please just take it easy and go more leisurely. You know what? Doesn't that blend beautifully with the surrender to effortlessness? Okay, this is assuring you eventually your wishes are going to come true, no matter what those wishes are. They could be your favorite expression of your creative self, your creative expression, which is your job. It could be to bring great abundance so that you can provide for those that you love, or it could be a relationship. And here we are, you're calling in your soulmate. You're doing your inner work, your inner visualizations. Get into that. I want to say, I'm hearing, do the visualizations as if that person is with you, and just don't get stuck on a face and a name, although you may find yourself that's the only one you can picture or think of, but always sort of let go. All right, just sort of let go. Allow that person to be with you. I think a mistake that a lot of people make is they try to block it out because it's painful. I don't want to think about being with that person. I don't want to, because the second you think about them, you start thinking about not being with them, right? But if you can understand that you are with them and you are in sync with them already, them or the divine equivalent, you can have that relationship in your heart and get up excited in the morning to see them or to spend time with them, because your wishes are eventually going to come true. Now, before it does, Source is just saying, remember, this is about the inner journey. And the inner journey is what you're focused on right now, more than likely. So that's okay. And that's wonderful. And that's what you need in order to move forward and to get to that place you want to be. So anyways, I just love doing this reading. I think I'm going to be doing more of these. It's so funny because I've seen them just recently popping up all over my my YouTube feed. Although I get a lot of other kinds of posts because I'm like sort of focused on keto eating right now, ketogenic eating. And so I'm getting a lot of that stuff. But sure enough, these readings come down my throat and I'm like, oh, I want to try these. Okay, let's look at green aventurine. This is a very abundant stone. Let's see what the cards say. Okay, we've got frustration. We've got chemistry. We've got self-love. Oh, I just love these cards. And then, all right, well, we have the Tower, the Whip, and the Falcon. All right, so let's go ahead and just let me have just a minute. Okay. Okay, so those of you have selected this. Right now, it seems that you're going through a period of time that is really emphasizing the need for self-love. And I say that need for self-love because I see this card on the periphery, which is the Whip, okay? And I'm just, it's tuning me into the fact that the self-love process, no matter what stage you find yourself in, when it comes to this process, this is your focus right now, okay? Now, some of you who are really trying to figure out self-love, that's the only way I can put it. I'm saying there are a lot of you that are really trying to figure out, what does it really mean to love myself? What does it really mean? I mean, because as soon as we think we love ourselves, we find 100 different ways that we don't love ourselves. And it's so like, how do I actually learn to love myself? Well, I think that this card is probably bringing frustration to some of you who have been working really hard on self-love, and you feel like you've achieved self-love, but then you start saying, oh my gosh, I'm back again at this place where I'm showing my ego, or my small self that doesn't feel enough love starts coming up, or I start feeling, threatened, or I don't feel like I'm lovable, or there could be a whole host of the ways that self-love will show up. This card here is saying surrender your frustrations, okay? Frustration doesn't open any doors, okay? The key to resolving a dilemma or dissolving a block is to take a breath, center yourself, and regroup so that you may approach the situation more calmly, okay? In the case of self-love, I want to say, first it takes consciousness of when you're frustrated. You become conscious of, wow, I'm feeling negative emotion, all right? And a lot of negative emotions come down to self-love, whether it's sadness, depression, anger, confusion, frustration. You can have a whole host of symptoms when it comes to self-love and working on it. But if you've been working on something for a long time, you become very frustrated. So I'm going to say that I'm being sort of told to share with you something that I know about how to surrender the frustration and how to regroup so that you can see the situation a bit more clearly. Okay, this is information that was channeled from Bashar, and it was something that I've said before several times in different videos, but I want to bring it up again because this is perfect setting for this right now. Okay, when you find yourself triggered with any emotion that you do not prefer, the first thing that you can do, first of all, take a deep breath and recognize, oh, I do not prefer this feeling, okay? The second thing is to go inside into your heart and just ask yourself, what is it that I must believe about myself in order to feel this way? Okay? So what must I believe about myself in this situation to make me feel this way, to trigger this emotion? And that's where you start to meditate on that question. What do I believe about myself? What do I think is true? I never really thought about that. wow. And you actually start going into your heart to find that answer. And Source, if you take a few deep breaths and you ask Source or your higher self to just join you and help you go through this exercise, what must I feel? What must I believe about myself? Because our feelings come from our beliefs. What must I believe in this situation in order for me to, all right? When you get that answer, write it down. And then I want you to ask yourself the following question. Is this really true? Is what I've just thought I believe about myself really how I feel about myself? 99 times out of 100, you're going to say no. Because it was a program that isn't really you. And when you really go into it, you're going to realize, oh my gosh, that is not really how I feel. And then the moment you say that, you literally drop it. And this is what Bashar teaches. It takes dropping those things that we don't prefer, dropping those things that are not true in order to get to self-love. So that's the secret in Ascension for getting to self-love. Okay, and in terms of your relationship, whoever you've been focusing on, there is a strong magnetic attraction here. Now, if you don't have anyone that you are aligned with at this time, it just simply means that you will very soon, or you can expect that there is going to be somebody coming in that you have a pretty good chemistry with, and you're going to feel that strong magnetic attraction. So that's a really good thing. Now I want to talk about, we brought up the self-love. I'm going to go ahead and read the Intuit Oracle cards together because that's what I typically do. And on this path of self-love, because that really is like the theme of what we're talking about, the central card is the Tower. Okay? So the Tower is standing alone. And the rest of the words on this card do not really align with me with this particular reading because we're talking about self-love. But if they do start to pop out at me, I will let you know. So a tower is really tall, and a tower gives a much higher perspective. And a tower typically does stand alone. So when you go to the top of the tower and you look down, you can see a great deal from far away. If it's a tall tower. But most towers are tall. That's why they're called a tower, right? So self-love really means floating up to a higher perspective and getting rid of all the things that you believe about yourself that aren't true. Now, I'm going to look at this card next to it, which is the Whip. All right? And in this particular reading, I want to say that the pain and the fights and the abuse and the anger and the illness and the tension is within yourself. Now, if you're experiencing this in outside relationships with anybody, including your beloved or, your family or whatever, it's because you're working on this. And you haven't yet surrendered your frustration. Okay? Frustration will make you want to do these things. And even if you don't know you're creating it, if you're drawn to these situations where there is pain, where there are arguments, where there are fights, guess what? Even if you're not causing them or picking the fights or whatever, truth is, this is a reflection of how you feel inside, okay? And that indicates a need for more self-love. That's it. This is it. Self-love. So while you're working on all these other things, this right here is just showing up to remind you, you don't need to do this, okay? If you see this happening, what do? Well, let me see. We'll take it, this card. What do? You surrender in the frustration and you transform that energy. You regroup and you become calm by doing what? By asking, what must I believe about myself in order to feel this way that I'm angry, or that I'm feeling I need to defend myself, or I feel like I need to attack the other person, or I feel that I need to argue? What must I believe about myself in order to have those things happen? And then guess what? As soon as you really find out what you believe in, you're going to drop it. So this is how you do the spiritual work. This is exactly how I've done my spiritual work. It's not the same way everyone is going to do their spiritual work, but it is a way to do your spiritual work. Now, let's look at this. This is the last card that I came upon, but what is it? It's the higher self. It's the falcon. It's that higher perspective that we were talking about. Look at the pair of the cards. Well, it was actually on this side, but look at that. So here you are, the falcon. What does the falcon have? Extremely high perspective, right? So the higher self is at the helm. The higher self is here to help you move into your higher purpose. Part of the first step of that, the most important step of that, is actually the self-love process. Okay, so self-love is what it takes to literally attune with your higher self in the highest possible way so that you can have victory in everything that you do. That is everything that you're going through right now. We tend to think so much about twin flames and relationships, or some of you are like, no relationships, ready to move on, want a different relationship, but let's face it, often we're motivated by relationship. Well, this path is to teach us through relationships that we don't really need relationships. Relationships are definitely the cherry on top. So when you get to a place where you're soaring with your higher self, and you're performing in your highest function as your higher purpose, all of your skills are going to start to hone. Your third eye is going to be wide open, and you're going to know where you're going. Okay? This is really, truly what we aim for in this whole catalytic heart awakening and ascension process. Once you do this, once you get to that place, true sacred union finds you. And I have often said, if you can have the experience that you want with a relationship where you have that fifth dimensional or higher connection of absolute adoration, love, respect, support, collaboration, mutual interest, all of those things that are found in true sacred union, where people have gotten rid of their blocks and they don't have insecurities and they don't project their stuff onto the other person, that is what we're aiming for. And that can only happen when we get to a truly ascended state. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't get together with someone before then, of course, but what it means is you're going to be doing a lot of work to get there. But that's what it's all about. Okay? Well, I hope that green aventurine, sorry, I hope that you enjoyed this reading. All right, so we're going to move that aside. Okay, I'm going to tune into Aqua Aura, the Aqua Aura sword, and I'm going to say, for those people who've picked the fourth deck, may this reading be exactly blessing them with what they need from their higher self. All right. I just love my Aqua Aura sword. I got this, my friend Julie Kincaid has a crystal mine. I think I did an interview with her on the Collective Awakening. If you haven't heard it, it's really good. Sound quality could have been a little bit better, but we had a really good conversation, and I'm hoping to get to see her again. But I love that. So let's look at these cards here. All right. Surrender to wonder and awe. Forgiving and learning. Changes. Interesting. Changes, and then we've got the ball and chain, Venus, the goddess of love, and the child. Okay, all right. Let me tune in now. Okay. For those of you that picked this deck, the main thing that you're working on is changes, okay? Now, changes can run the gamut from everything to changing your living arrangement, to changing the way you eat, to changing your sleep patterns, to change your partner. Changes can be as subtle as a new look, a new wardrobe. It can be as I want to say material, 3 world. changes can be as much as huge transformational changes of ascension. So you'll have to decide what changes you're making in your life right now. Source is saying that to go through any kind of change, it's something my mom always said to me when I was younger. She said, we will refuse to change until the pain of change becomes greater becomes less, that's right, becomes less than the pain of staying the same. Okay? So in other words, staying the same creates so much discomfort and so much pain that change doesn't look so bad after all. Okay? And the reason why I bring that up is because I see here the card, surrender to wonder and awe. Everything that's happening around us right now is the most incredible, wonderful, amazing shifts and changes that this planet has ever seen. The angels rejoice. The beings that surround our planet and watch us make these changes, those of us who came here and those of us who are literally physically changing, emotionally changing, spiritually changing, that is the most incredible thing that could ever happen, and we are here to experience it. Now, if you're looking at things from a global perspective, okay, a global perspective meaning how the world is run and how it's operated, we have been run by the dark side of ourselves and the collective energies for the longest time, okay? We delved into the darkness to find out what was there, and we've recently made the discovery, as we fell as low as we could no longer keep going down. And the call went out to the universe and to source to say, you know what? We don't want to go any lower than this. We want to metamorphosize, if that's a word, and we want to return back to our higher states of being. So we already took that loop and we're already on our way back up in these changes, okay? No matter what you believe about what's happening in the world, and no matter how you've judged the situations of who's running things, what they're doing, who's right, who's wrong, the bottom line is the white hats, the higher power, they are at the helm right now. They are in the background. They are in every level of all the governments across the world. They are making the change. So what we have to do is we have to say, I trust that the shift is happening for all. It's happening at the global level. And we have to trust what we're seeing. The changes are completely, amazingly huge. And so here we go. Surrender to wonder and awe. Whether it's at the slightest change that you make in the way you present yourself to the world in your clothes or your hairstyle or what makeup you're wearing or whatever it is, or whether you decide to go to the gym or do a keto diet, or, this is the physical material way, or whether you're watching the huge astronomical changes that are spreading across this globe. If you can reach into yourself and surrender to the wonder and awe of what is happening, you will shift so much because you will attune with the energies of what is coming. And as soon as you start resonating with that energy, creating that energy, bringing that energy through, you're going to help tremendously not only shift yourself, but shift everything. So the words on the card for surrender to wonder and awe is open to the magic of every moment and sense the awe and wonder of all life. This attitude will keep you connected to the ecstasy of flow. And guess what? We've got that word flow again, don't we? If you saw the first set of cards, or I think it was the first set, we're talking about the river. We're talking about the flow. So the changes, you're in the midst of some changes. Only you know what those changes are. But if you can remember to surrender to the wonder and awe of it, okay? Part of change in terms of relationships is learning to forgive, okay? As you release and heal the past, you experience more love in your present moments. This is, in terms of love, a really big change, okay? So a lot of us have been undergoing the release and healing of the past. So that is huge internal change for us. And the internal change that comes with, learning forgiveness and learning about the true love that is in every present moment of now is part of the changes that you might be going through right now. To learn, it's saying forgiving and learning, but to become in a state of forgiveness. And it's easy to do if you go into gratitude and you accept the beautiful blessings you've had with certain things that you've held on to, and how much you would never have made the progress you made if it wasn't for the absolute treachery that you've had to go through in your certain circumstances that have been so challenging as a human. Now, going to these cards here, in terms of this whole reading, changes. The ball and chain is about being tied down and trapped, okay? But you notice that the leg is not in the cuffs, okay? This is something that you may have been dealing with in terms of needing a change. Either you're holding on to a real heaviness of the absence of a relationship, or the absence of children that have grown up, or a heaviness. That's the way I feel it. I feel it as an energy like keeping you down, making it hard to get up in the morning. It may be what makes you want to drink wine, margaritas on Friday, or addictions of food. It might be you're wanting to put food into your mouth. You're feeling kind of trapped in your situation. And I'll tell you what, if you're a twin flame, twin soul, or you've been on this catalytic heart awakening, you can ebb and flow between feeling really, really good about things and then going back to feeling like, oh my God, I am saddled with this ball and chain of experience and I just don't want it anymore. This is probably part of some of the things that are changing right now. They're in the process of changing, okay? Because it's becoming important now. Your soul is really trying to wake you up. So to the degree you're still in that situation, the universe is going to try to shake you to your core. It's going to make sure that, hey, there's some changes that need to be made here. If you're unhappily married and you're staying in a marriage where you're unhappily married, it's going to get worse, okay? It's going to get worse before it gets better. So changes have to happen. Only you know what kind of changes those are. But what we have here, which is great, we have Venus, the goddess of love. And what she's doing is she's bringing all the beautiful energy of Venus. Okay, she's bringing the energy of Venus to this situation. And she is here to remind you that this is an illusion. Okay, there's a happy, loving relationship for you. There is a happy, beautiful self that's just sitting there waiting for you in this change. Whether that's an internal thing like we talked about, or whether it's, external changes you're making to yourself to get out from underneath this trapped feeling. Venus promises, this is the Empress card in the Tarot, Venus promises that she's watching over you. The energy of that is watching over you. And so it's just a matter, surrender to the wonder and awe. Okay? Surrender to the wonder and awe, because all around you is so much wonder. You will soon find yourself, even though you've just undone the ball, it's no longer on your leg. You don't feel it as tight as you did. You're going to have Venus shining away a lot of that energy. And guess what? What's left? The child. And the child is about new beginnings. It's about brand new things. It's about spontaneity, okay? Innocence, carefreeness. Oh my God, what would it be like to live in a world where you were carefree, where you never had to worry about anything, right? Where you never needed to be concerned about the hands on the steering wheel. Everything you could possibly want is always given to you. Believe me, when you achieve this state, this metamorphosized, and I can't ever say that word, change, when you do that, all right, and you surrender to this awe and this wonder of this planet, and you surrender into that, and you allow the love of Venus to just illuminate the heaviness that you might be feeling during this shift or change or break, this new beginning is going to make this ball and chain completely go away. And this is where you'll end up, right here. Okay. Well, that wraps up my pick a card reading. Oh my God, I loved doing that. I really think I'm going to do that again. Don't be surprised if I want to do it again. I have ever since I started reading the Intuit Oracle cards. Aria, my very dear friend, and I have had such a trip together as she's bringing through these cards and changing them, updating them, getting ready to ship them. I use them all the time. And now all of a sudden, it's like a lot of you know that I've been a little inconsistent over the years. I've been doing this for a very long time. I've been on this catalytic heart awakening path for 6 to 7 years. And I've been on the spiritual path my whole life. And it's kind of like I started trying to do card readings because I really enjoy reading cards, but none of the cards that I ever worked with before now on their own ever really gave me the same connection and insight that I feel I have now. And this is the first time, I'll be honest with you, that I've combined the Intuit Oracle with some other decks. And I'll tell you what, it was even deeper and richer of a meaning to me. I got a lot out of these readings. I don't know about you guys. I would like to hear from you, though. I would like to hear, because this is the first time I've done them. And I'd like to know, I'm looking for where's my little sword? Oh, here it is. I really want to know what you think. I really want to know, did, you picking that particular stack really, really help you? Or maybe you've watched all of them and said, oh my gosh, I got something out of all of them. I got something out of all of them. So I enjoy doing these readings for myself because they help tune me into the higher energies so that I can do what I came here to do in my creative expression. So anyways, thank you guys so much. I'm so happy that you joined me, and I cannot wait. I'm going to process this now. I'm going to get this up tonight. I will put the timestamps, and you'll know where to go. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. I can't think of anything else. I do have the readings up for the zodiac signs, Aries through Pisces. They're up in a playlist on True Sacred Union, my YouTube channel. I also did a weekly reading that was released yesterday. I believe it was Monday or Sunday or Monday, and it goes through Saturday. So if you want to check that out, I'll have another weekly reading coming. But other than that, thank you so much for joining me. Oh, I do know what I want to tell you. Probably within the next week or two, I am going to do a live reading just like this. Well, not pick a card. It's going to be a reading similar to this, but it's going to be for a particular person. And I know how this works, that even when I do a reading for one person, there's always information for everybody. So I'm going to pick a person. If you want to be considered for it, all you need to do, go ahead and like this video is fine. Go ahead, go to my YouTube channel, True Sacred Union, become a subscriber, because this is for my subscribers. And then, take one of my videos that you resonate with, share it out there to social media somewhere, share it with a friend you think it will help, and then comment, I did those things. Lastly, send me an email to vibrationsoflove@gmail.com. That's how I can get a hold of you to let you know when this live reading is going to take place. I'm going to do it on YouTube. And I'm also giving away, Aria has given me a deck that I can give away of the brand new Intuit Oracle. All I have right now are the cards, but it's got a lovely box. If you've seen any of the videos we've done, you'll want to see the product is gorgeous. So anyways, thank you guys so much. I appreciate you sticking around for the last few minutes. I love you all so much, and I wanted to say thank you. Namaste.